good week, and I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited to be bringing you this message. But I want to start off with a story. There was a fairly successful businessman, and he and his wife were on holiday or on vacation over in Europe. And they had booked this luxury cruise. It was super expensive, and they were super excited about going on this top-of-the-line luxury cruise. And everything was planned and ready to go, and they were excited and getting ready. And all of a sudden, the husband got a call from his work, and they said, hey, there's urgent business you need to handle. You need to come home right away. So he reluctantly went to his wife, and he said, look, I know we've got this cruise planned, and we had all these ideas, and it was going to be awesome and amazing, but I just got a call, and I've got to get back to work to take care of some issues that have come up. And his wife was upset, and she was, she understood, but she wasn't happy about it, and she was, kind of pouting around and having a rough time, and so they began their journey back home. Well, as it turns out, when they got home, they were pleasantly surprised, because on their return trip, that cruise ship that they were supposed to be on hit an iceberg and sank to the bottom of the ocean. Most of us know it as the Titanic. And that man was able to go on and continue his business and continue his role as founder and CEO of one of the most delicious companies in the entire world.
Hey, give that back.
His name was Milton Hershey. And they were in France on a vacation, and they were planning on taking a trip back to the Titanic, or on the Titanic, and it didn't work out. Have any of you ever been upset because something you had planned, you had hoped for, you'd been wishing for, didn't turn out the way you thought? Right? Yeah, almost every one of us in here. But have you ever been pleasantly surprised when it worked out better than you expected? It wasn't how you thought it was going to be, but when you got done and you got to the end, you go, hey, you know what? This actually worked out better for me. All right? It happens all the time. And that's the mindset that I want us to take into this message. And that is this, that no matter how bad it seems, or no matter how bad we want something that doesn't work out, with God, the worst can always come out for our best. All right? And so tonight we are going to be looking at Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 through 21, and a message I've entitled, The Foreign Land. And we are going to learn how to act or react when we as Christians are taken captive. So let's begin our story by looking in Daniel chapter 1. So in the story of Daniel, the book begins with a little bit of history. And if you remember a few weeks ago, I was talking to you about after Josiah and Jeremiah, there was 3 kings that were appointed by Egypt and Babylon, and there was Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Shin, I don't remember them all, but that's okay. And then it got all the way down to Zedekiah. Well, during the reign of Jehoiakim, he ruled for 3 years. And if you remember, he was appointed by the Egyptian Pharaoh to be king over Judah. Well, during his reign, Babylon came in and took control of Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon, said, I don't want an Egyptian-appointed ruler as the overseer of Israel and Judah. So we're going to bring him back and take him back to Babylon. And at the same time, they went into the temple and they stole some of the artifacts that were in the temple. And they took them back and began to use them in their own worship of their own gods. Then he looked to his commander and he said, I want you I want you to find some of the best men, young men, ages 15 to 18, that are part of the royal line, that are of noble birth, that have no blemishes, that are handsome and smart. And I want you to bring them to me. And I want them to be trained for 3 years. All right? We're going to teach them, we're going to train them, and we're going to assimilate them. And they will serve as my royal advisors. I also want you to give them all of the privileges of being a royal advisor. I want you to give them the best food, the best wine, the money that they need, and the best clothes. And I want you to take really, really good care of them. And so he did. And he collected a group of boys, a small group of boys, and 4 of those boys were named Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. You probably know them better as Daniel from the lion's den, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And we're going to talk more about why their names are different here in just a minute. And so they were taken, and they were brought into this 3-year assimilation program to become royal advisors to the king of Babylon. But they immediately saw a problem, and that problem started with the food that they were given. They're like, this food, if we eat it, it is going to defile our bodies. And there's a little bit of I don't want to say debate. Debate's too strong of a word, but there's 2 main opinions as to why they thought that it would defile them. Number 1 is that it was unclean animals that went against the Jewish dietary laws. And the other reason was that the king was using the best foods that were given in worship to their false gods. And in doing so, they would be eating food that was worshipped, that was used in the worship process of a god they did not believe in, and it would defile their bodies. So Daniel approached their official, the guy who was over the top of him. And he goes to him, and luckily, this guy had kind of taken a shine to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he liked them, and he recognized that they were smart, and that they were handsome, and that, these guys are going to be top-notch guys. And so Daniel went to him and he goes, hey, look, we get all this stuff. We want to be respectful. We understand why we're here, but would it be possible for us to not eat all of this fine food, this rich meat, all of this delicious stuff that's over here? We want to eat vegetables and drink water. We don't want wine. And the guy goes, man, I'd really like to help you out. I completely understand, but if I let you go on that diet and you become weaker and not as strong as these other guys, then when Nebuchadnezzar comes and examines you, I'm going to get in trouble because I didn't prepare you the way that I was supposed to. So Daniel thinks about it and he goes, okay, hey, I got an idea. How about we do a 10-day test? And we eat everything we want for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, you examine us, and if there's one blemish or one thing that's wrong, we'll go back and we'll eat whatever you want, whatever you tell us to eat. And he goes, all right, deal, let's do it. So for 10 days, they ate vegetables, they drank water, and they prayed and worshiped God. Well, at the end of the 10 days, not only was there no weakness or blemish found among the boys, but they were actually healthier and in better condition than all of the other young men that were there and were a part of this program. And so he agreed. He said, hey, you're doing good. I'll keep letting you eat what you want to eat. And they were allowed to follow their diets. And because of their faithfulness, God continued to bless them. He gave them understanding and knowledge of literature and wisdom. And he even gave Daniel the ability to interpret dreams and visions. And the whole book of Daniel is full of these amazing visions of things that were to come. And when the 3-year period was over, Nebuchadnezzar came down. He examined every man or every young man that was in this program, and he tested them, and he gave them quizzes, and he found out how smart and all of these things. And when he got finished, he looked at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he goes, man, these guys are top notch. In fact, the text actually says they were 10 times better than any other advisor that King Nebuchadnezzar had. And so he made them some of his chief and top advisors in his court. And God blessed these men even in their time of exile. And so we have this amazing story of the faithfulness of these 4 young men and how God rewarded them for their faithfulness. And so tonight, I want us to look at 3 faith lessons. And the first one is this: what to expect when you're taken captive. What to expect when you are taken captive. We met these 4 young men. They are uprooted from everything they know. And again, I want to remind you, these guys are 15, 16, 17 years old. They're just a few years older than you guys. Can you imagine being ripped out of your homes in just a few years and taken to a foreign land where you don't even speak the language yet? And being told that you have to eat certain things and you have to do certain things, and everywhere around you is evil and wickedness. That's where they were in. And a lot of us look at this story and we go, hey, these guys are the heroes of the story. They're the ones we need to watch. And they are. But we don't want to leave out the true hero. And that is God. And his faithfulness to his people and to those who are faithful to him. Because on the surface, it looks as if Israel was invaded, was lost, and these men were taken prisoner. And it looked like Israel had been defeated. It looked like God had been defeated by the pagan gods and the Babylonian gods. But in reality, what was happening was something so much more important. You see, Babylon wasn't invading Israel. God was invading Babylon. And as we'll see in just a few short minutes, these 4 men played an integral role in that. So we need to make sure that you have the proper perspective when you are taken captive. You need that perspective because when we think things are going bad and something could be negative, we need to take a step back and wait and see what God does. So make sure you have the proper perspective. I know there's been times where I've been late and I've been rushing and thing after thing after thing stops me up. And then on my path to going to wherever I'm in such a hurry to get there, there's been a car wreck or there's been an accident or something crazy. And it is very likely that if I wouldn't have been slowed down by all these things that were driving me crazy, it might have been me that was in that wreck. So when things are down and when life seems to deal you a bad deck of cards, make sure you take a proper perspective and wait and see what God may do for you. God was invading Babylon, and he was going to use these 4 men to be salt and light to the entire country of Babylon. But it wouldn't be easy. And over the next few weeks, we're going to learn just how difficult it would become. But it started with this 3-year testing period. And Babylon was attacking these boys in 4 different ways. They had a 4-pronged attack coming at them, trying to assimilate them into their culture. The first prong is isolation. They were taken away from everyone and every person that they knew. They were alone, they were abandoned, and they had no support from their family and from those that they loved and cared for. Now, they were in small groups, and it was easy. It was easy to be distracted. It was easy to try to stand for what you believe in. But then when the officials and the teachers knocked you down, there wasn't a whole lot of support. And for us, many of us in here are going, Pastor Luke, we're not captives. We aren't having to deal with what they're dealing with. Why are we having this message? Well, because I want to bring to your eyes just how close we as Christians are to being captives. When you go to school, you're no longer allowed to pray. You get made fun of as a Christian. Many places are trying to remove 10 commandments from the walls or from statues. You can be told you can't bring your Bible to school anymore. And everywhere we go, people are making it more and more difficult for us to stand for Jesus. All right? Sure, we have a certain day here and there, but you don't see a whole lot of prayer at football games anymore. And slowly but surely, they're removing God from our day-to-day lives. And when we're at school, maybe some of you do, but when I walk through schools, I don't often hear kids talking about, hey man, I go to this church and we're having this event, you need to come. Or when somebody starts getting bullied, why do you believe in a false God? No one comes running to his aid and goes, hey man, why don't you leave this guy alone? It's not just him. And we oftentimes are isolated and feel alone when we're at school. Because no one will stand with us. And just like the Babylonians used isolation, our culture is starting to isolate out Christians. The second is this, indoctrination. All right? Indoctrination, they tried to educate them. They tried to teach them their ways, their science, their math, their religion, their astrology. And they tried to teach them what they believed was right, whether it was or not. And the same thing happens to us in schools every day. I want you to check out this video. It's another 1-minute apologist, but it was very eye-opening for me. Go ahead.
Welcome to the 1-Minute Apologist. We interview the world's leading apologists to provide credible answers to curious questions.
If the evidence is so compelling for evolution, why doesn't the world know?
So actually, Scripture gives us a hint. Chapter 1 of Romans says that unrighteous men suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And so actually, it shouldn't be surprising for Christians to see that important truths, and truths that point to Christ instead of to Darwin, would be suppressed in this world. And so what you'll find is that anything that supports, anyone who voices support for evolution, their message will be in the mass media, it'll be received synthetically within classrooms and within academic institutions. And any evidence that is that undermines evolutionary claims basically is ignored. And so you actually have to dig for the evidence. The evidence is there, it's in the scientific journals, but it's not proclaimed. So the evidence is really, really exciting, especially in my field, genetics. Just layer upon layer upon layer of evidence pointing away from evolution. It's very, very clear the genome is designed, and it's very clear that it's degenerated. And so you just have to add 2 + 2 to realize that requires a creator.
Now here's the thing. What that guy said is very shocking. He said, well, if it supports or advocates for evolution, then it's accepted in the schools, in the media, everywhere. But if it disagrees and it points away, you never hear about it. It's there for you to go and seek and find, but it's not there. And the truth of the matter is when you get down to the nitty-gritty, science does not prove that evolution is a fact. In fact, science is more and more proving that there has to be a creator. But you won't hear about that in your textbooks because they're trying to teach you what they want you to learn. They're trying to indoctrinate you in what they think is important. And that's dangerous. The third attack, or the third prong, is assimilation. They gave them all of the nice things, all of the greatest food, all of the nicest wine, all of the nicest clothes, all of the privilege of being part of of the royal court. And so they had all of these great, wonderful things. And when somebody comes to you and they give you a whole bunch of stuff for free, or they give you a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to work for and go and be a part of, it's really hard to say no. All right? If somebody walked up and gave you a brand new car, they said, it's yours, you can take it. And you're like, all right, yeah, let's go. It's going to be real hard to not take it. But then you're going to find out that it was just a means to an end. And they're just trying to assimilate you to the culture that they want you to be a part of. And our world tells us to do the same thing. If it makes you happy, do it. If you want success, work to be successful. If you want money, work to make money. If you want nice cars, you want a big house, whatever it is, do whatever it takes to get there and you will be happy. And a lot of people in this world do that. They run out, they try to reach and grab success, and sometimes they're successful. But then you hear stories of they've got all of these treasures, all of these things that they thought would make them happy. And they're looking around going, man, I'm just as lonely as I was before. I feel just as terrible as I did before. This didn't solve my problem. So they used isolation, indoctrination, assimilation, and then they used confusion. They changed their names. Daniel's name means God is judge. But they changed Daniel's name to can't even say it. Doesn't want to come out. My tongue's too dry. Hang on. Belshazzar, which means Baal will protect his life. They changed Hananiah's name, which means the Lord shows grace, to to Shadrach, which means at the command of Aku, which was another one of their gods. Baal and Aku were two of their main gods. Mishael's name, which meant he who is like God, was changed to Meshach, which means he who is like Aku. And then finally, Azariah, whose name means Lord help me, was changed to Abednego, which meant the servant of Nebo. So everything that they knew, all of their names pointed back to the God, the one true God, the God that they loved. But they robbed them of it. They took that from them. They changed their names to point to their gods and to point to their people. And it led to confusion. And it led them to think, well, maybe my God isn't that great. Because he was conquered, right? But here's the deal. These four men, they didn't think God was conquered. They knew that what was happening is God was using Babylon to punish Israel for all of the wrongdoings they had done. And these four men never lost faith in their belief in God. And that's our second faith lesson for the night. No matter what, live according to your faith in God and what you know to be true of the one true God. No matter what, live according to your belief in God. Babylon lured them away with food and privilege and amazing teachings and knowledge. Just like our world does the same thing to us. With false hope, with the privilege, with nice things, but you're found still wanting. We must rely on our faith and what we know is true. From the witnesses in the Bible, from that which history has told us about, and from that which archaeology proves over and over again. We must put our trust in God. Now, I want to say something. I'm not telling you that you can go to school tomorrow and say, my pastor told me I don't need to learn science. Because that's not what I'm saying. All right? That's not what's going on. I'm not telling you that you don't go home tonight and go, I don't need to do my homework. It's all made up and it's all lies. Here's the deal, guys. Science is a great thing. And like I said earlier, science is more and more proving that there must have been a creator of this world, of this universe. And it's important for us to study and to learn the truth. And science isn't going to disprove those things. Science is going to prove what the truth really is. And in the end, God will prevail. So don't run away or be afraid of education. Learn the mindset. Get indoctrinated in it. Learn what is wrong and what needs to be found out as truth. Maybe you're the one who discovers the next big discovery that proves, hey, evolution is a myth. Maybe you can learn the mindset of those teachers and professors who are trying to convince us that God doesn't exist, so that you can better understand their argument and find better ways of convincing them. Learn the right questions to ask. Learn how to ask the questions appropriately. Don't get offended. Don't start a fight. Don't do anything crazy. That's not what God intends us to do. He intends us to come in, learn what we can, and then make the best of what He's given us, so that we can show that He is the one true God. These 4 men, they never protested. They never started a fight. They never started a riot. They kindly and gentlemanly went and asked a question. And they moved forward. And God blessed them along the way. We don't have to fight a big fight. We can just trust who God is. Because those who put their faith in God, God will reward them. Just like He rewarded these 4. And so, we have to remember that. And that's our third faith lesson. That's our third faith lesson, guys. Third faith lesson for the night is God rewards His faithful. He granted wisdom and understanding to these 4 men. He gave David the ability to interpret dreams and vision. They were so blessed that no one was equal to them. And Nebuchadnezzar chose them as his most trusted advisors. And so when it looked like Israel had lost, Jerusalem had been captured, and God had been defeated, within 3 years, God now had the ear of the king. And when Nebuchadnezzar had to make a decision, he turned to 4 godly men to give him advice. And God had fully fulfilled His plan of infiltrating Babylon. And even though it seemed like it would be lost, even though it seemed like he had been defeated, all along He had a plan to come out on top and be victorious. Because in them learning the mindset of Babylon, they were able to come and show the superiority of God. But this wouldn't be the last few Hebrews or Israelites that God sent into enemy territory. He would eventually send His own Son from heaven down to earth. And instead of 3 years to ascend to the king's court, He spent 33 years serving and working. And His last 3 years of ministry, to not go to a king's court, but to be nailed to a cross for you and for me. But he rose again. He came back so that we could enter into the King's court, so that we could be saved. Those of us who are faithful will be rewarded by entering into the kingdom of God and being amongst the King's court. Jesus is the faithful reward for those of us who trust him. So in closing, I've got two questions for you. The first one is this: would you stand like David, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah? Would you stand like them in the face of persecution? Would you be willing to stand up and stay faithful in God when everything is turned against you? There may be some of you in here who say, I don't know, Pastor Luke, I don't even know who Jesus is. Well, here in just a minute, I'm going to give you an opportunity to meet this God, to meet the God, so that you can put your faith in him, and so that you can learn to trust him and stand in the time of persecution. And then there's those of you who are thinking, yeah, you know what? I could stand in the midst of persecution. If things were going wrong, I would stand long and tall for God and for Jesus. So I have a question for you. You're willing to stand for him in persecution, but are you standing for him now when there's no persecution fighting against you? Sure, you may be made fun of. Sure, it may be difficult. But it's nothing compared to what it could be. Are you standing now with no persecution like they stood in the face of persecution? Let's bow our heads. Here in just a minute, Sam is going to come up and he's going to play a song on his guitar. And during that time, we're going to have an invitation.